What up, property punters? It's your boy Jay Hendo. Look, now I think I'm a rapper. I'm just a property guy. Chill. All right, here we go. Today, we're going to talk about rent vesting. And I love rent vesting, and I've done it forever. And essentially, rent vesting is short for not wanting to be poor forever. Let me explain. What most people do is they go and buy a house. That's a house. Most people go buy one of those things. And essentially, what they do is most people want the best house that they could get. We buy a lot of these things called houses. I've never met someone before who has said to me, Jack, I can spend $3 million on a house, but I only want to spend $1 million. That doesn't happen. Everyone goes, I want to spend $3 million on a house, but I don't like $3 million houses because I'm better than that. I want to spend $5 million on a house. Doesn't matter the price point, whether you're spending $1 million or you're spending $20 million. Everyone wants the best house that they can possibly buy because they deserve it, apparently. Most people go and get the max debt they can get. They buy an owner-occupier home and they get, let's assume for all intensive purposes, this is a $1 million property. A $1 million property, if you borrowed 100% in today's environment, would cost you at 6% interest somewhere between $60,000 to $70,000 per year in repayments. Okay, that is just interest. You have capital on top, your principal repayments, but let's assume just interest. You then have council rates on top of that. Let's assume they're $4,000 a year. Maintenance on a property of $1 million, probably $10,000 a year, 1% of the property value, a few other bits and bobs, right? Most people want to upgrade their home, blah, 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 blah. You buy $1 million property and it's actually costing you $74,000 a year in just expenses. It's not really costing you $74,000 a year because to pay $74,000 a year, we have to pay the tax man first, right? No one thinks about this because most people get paid and the tax comes out before you get paid. What would be interesting is to see if everyone got paid all of their money and then the money comes out of their account for tax. They would treat it differently. So to pay $74,000 a year in after-tax expenses, you would actually have to earn probably $150K a year. Out of $150,000 a year, you're probably going to pay somewhere between $30,000 to $40,000 a year in tax. Let's assume that you'll pay $35,000 a year in tax. That then takes you down to $115 net income. Out of that $115, you've then got to live, got to go on holidays, got to do all the shit, and you've got to pay $74,000 per year in interest, which then leaves you a grand total of $40,000 a year to live, and you haven't even eaten one Pop-Tart yet. And then the awesome thing about this is you do that for the next 30 years. And what most people also do is they don't live in this one little house for 30 years because as they earn more money and they get a partner and they get a better job, they want to get a better house. So they increase their mortgage and they're in debt all the way up until they're 60 years old. And then they go, fuck, I can't retire if I don't sell my house. So this is what poor people do because most retirees can't retire when they get to 60. I think it's like 87% of retirees. I read on a billboard the other day. It's got to be true. 87% of retirees, when they get to retirement, don't have a comfortable retirement. So if almost 90% of people don't have a comfortable retirement, why would you do what all those people do? Let me show you a better way. But we're not buying a $2.1 million property because we want to compare apples with apples, all right? Granny Smith's was Granny Smith's. So let's assume that we just go rent a $1 million property. On a $1 million property, you're probably going to pay $800 a week, which works out to be about a 4% rental yield. So at $800 a week, $40K a year, thereabouts, in rent, we're not paying $60,000 a year in interest repayment. So we're saving $20,000 per year. Let me just leave this number up here for later. So we're saving 20 grand a year from renting that property as opposed to owning it, and that's not including any of the property expenses, which just happen to be this number here. So we're saving 20 grand a year, but they're gonna say, Jack, we don't have the property growth in the future. But I say, hey, property punter, we're going to go buy it, but we're going to buy it as an investment property. So we buy the property next door, identical. Everything is the same. We also pay $1 million for that property. It also rents for $800 per week, which is $40,000 per year. And we also have the same expenses as we would have had if we bought it as an owner-occupied property. We have 60 grand a year in interest repayments. We've got $4,000 a year in council rates. We've got $10,000 a year in repairs and maintenance. So our total cost for the property is $74,000 per year, but we're only getting $40,000 a year in rental income. So it's actually costing us $34,000 a year to own that property, and we're saving $20,000 a year from renting it. So it's actually costing us another $34,000 out of our pocket. We're spending $40,000 a year on rent. It works out to be $74,000 a year, which actually is the same amount as it was costing us to own. But this $34,000 a year is actually a tax deduction now. So it's not the same net numbers because the net numbers are different. So if there is a $34,000 $1,000 gap between what it's costing us to own the property and the rental income, this here then becomes a tax deduction. And let's assume that our tax rate is 32.5%. That means that we get 32.5% of that $34,000 back, which equals $11,000, which gets added back to our back pocket. So it no longer costs us $74,000 a year. It now only costs us $63,000 a year. Plus, on top of that, I haven't factored in any depreciation yet. So let's assume that we get $5,000 in depreciation as well, plus $5K in depreciation. So now we're actually down to $58K. So we've gone from having a $74,000 cost owning the property to now only having a $58,000 cost. So we've actually saved ourselves so far $16,000 in cash flow per year, which works out to be $300 or $400 a week. But then on top of that, we now have more borrowing capacity. As we earn more money, these deductions get greater because we're on a higher tax bracket, and the numbers just compound for years and years and years to come. And if this is structured correctly, you can still get your capital gains tax-free growth for 6 years if you live in the property for a period of time first. And one thing I can assure you, as you start to go higher in purchase price, instead of having a $1 million home, you have a $2 or a $3 or a $4 or $5 million home, these numbers get greater and greater. The gap between what it costs you to own that property and what it costs you to rent it and what you can make through rent vesting is greater. So if we're comparing the pair, there is about a 30% difference in cost. You're more tax efficient, building more wealth, and at the end of the day, this property, the investment property, is actually going to give you an outcome at the end of the day because you can sell the investment property down, you can live off the rental income, whatever it is, where if it was an owner-occupier property, you can't do any of that, even if it's debt-free, because you still need somewhere to live. So it has no utility other than a roof over your head. So that is why I rent vest, lots of other wealthy people rent vest, and is a much more tax-efficient use of your money.